What's up and what's happening, TPE family? We're back with another episode of the Pivot Experience podcast. On this episode, I believe we have a very special guest. This is someone, if you're in the Chick-fil-A world, you may know who this individual is. He is the host of the Secret Sauce podcast, where he talks to a lot of operators and just really shares his thoughts and processes around leadership development. I'm talking about none other than Josh Swing. We're definitely glad that Josh agreed to be a part of this podcast with us today. And we had an enriching conversation around life, leadership, and just personal development. So I'm not going to bore you guys too much with the intro. Let's jump right into the episode. What's up and what's happening, TPE family? We're back with another TPE podcast. The Pivot Experience here is geared towards helping leaders pivot into their next. If you've been following this podcast, you know we like to bring on guests that I feel like bring a tremendous amount of leadership value, business experience, and just things that you can take away and add to your journey. And today's guest is a very, very special guest. I had the opportunity to hear this gentleman speak at our local Houston Chick-fil-A leadership conference last year. And a few things really stuck out in my mind from our conversation. The number one thing, though, is that how he prioritizes his family and prioritize putting them first as it relates to his leadership. I had a chance to attend his breakout session, and it, again, echoed the exact same thing, making sure that his family is number one, and the things that he produces and the work that his hands do is a reflection of what God would see fit for him to do and for him to be a contributor to his family. I am talking about the host of the Secret Sauce podcast, Josh Swing. How are you doing today, my friend?
Man, to be honest with you, I'm totally flattered by that introduction. That's amazing. I was here for it. I was just gonna let you keep rocking, Alex, if we just want to do that for the rest of the conversation. No, man, I'm extremely appreciative of you and the work that you're doing through the Pivot Experience. I've followed from afar for a while now, and I'm a fan, man, of the community that you're creating. And I'll also commend you that at the conference, one of the challenges that I made in the keynote, I don't know if you remember this, was to connect with other people. Like, take the time, be present, go have a conversation with somebody, go initiate. And you did that, man. You came up to me at the conference and you introduced yourself. We got the chance to get to know each other. You told me about the work that you were doing in the podcast that you hosted, and was really encouraged by our conversation. So, man, I loved getting to see you just live that out like immediately after I had the keynote. Not everybody did that, and you were one of the few. And I think it says a lot about you and the leader that you are, and obviously the value that you're adding to so many people through this platform that you have. So thanks for asking me on, dude.
Oh, no, appreciate it, man. And I just want to kind of just get into the conversation. You are an experienced leader, a coach, a father, a husband, a follower of Christ. There's so many different hats that you wear. Can you kind of just map out who is Josh Swing to the audience?
Yeah, I'll do my best. You did. I mean, you provided a great summary right there, Alex. I think first and foremost, I am a follower of Christ. And if that's all that I'm remembered for, then it's a mark, it's a tally in the win column. That's what I want my priority to be in life. That's what I want my legacy to be, is somebody who followed Christ as closely as he possibly could. And so that's where Josh Swing starts, and that overflows into my family. Like you said, family is a huge priority for me. I think it's the most important job that I have on this earth, is pouring into my family. And that starts with my wife, Erin, and how I'm investing in her. And then it goes to my three kids currently. I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And so that is as exhausting as it sounds with me rattling off those ages. We are just physically tapped out by the end of the day right now, but it's good work. It's really good work that we're doing. Outside of those, like those things, kids, family, I mean, you'll catch me playing Floor is Lava, or having a princess tea party in the upstairs playroom with my daughter, or trying to teach my 1.5-year-old how to obey right now. We're saying no an awful lot. So that occupies a lot of my free time. Outside of that, I love basketball. I grew up playing basketball. You'll hear some of that in what I communicate today. It's a big part of my story and my leadership journey. So naturally, some of that will come out. Um, love being outside just in general. All things coaching. I'm like a professional leadership. I mean, a professional little league coach now. I had somebody come up to me after one of my son's practices and say, "You were made for this, for being a little league coach." And I was like, I didn't know how to take that. I wish I could get paid for coaching little league, but unfortunately not.
Yeah, yeah,
It was a
yeah.
kind compliment, I think. But that's a little bit about myself.
Awesome, man. Well, no, I remember you played basketball. I remember the story that you had, and I don't want to steal any of the thunder, but your high school struggles that you had, and so I'm sure that's
Mm,
going to come up in our conversation. But I wanted to talk, I guess, about some of your employment history, right? I
yeah.
know that you were in sales when you worked at BBVA. You
Mhm.
transitioned into Greystone Country Club, where you transitioned from sales to maybe people development a little bit, and now you're at Wildsparq. So talk to me. What was that catalyst for you to go from sales to people development?
That's a great question. I'm happy to give you a little summary too of the professional journey side of things, Alex. It's funny you mentioned in like a transition from sales into leadership. Uh, Sales, by the way that I define it, I'm like everybody's in sales. Everybody is in sales, and so I learned um, some practical skills through the early years in my career, sales wise, that have applied in so many different ways regardless of what you do, regardless of what your role is inside of an organization, inside of a team, whether or not you are a quote unquote salesperson, you are selling something. You're selling an idea, you're selling a vision, you're selling a project, you're selling a product. You could be selling anything internally or externally to a customer, but we're all in some type of sales role. And I think all sales is really it's helping people solve problems is how I would simplify sales. Just helping people solve problems. It's the sales the right way, I guess. Everybody's probably experienced like the overly pushy salesperson when you went to, I don't know, buy a car or uh, do one of those other things. That's not what I would classify as is good, like a good salesperson or good sales. Good sales is a posture of understanding. It's just simply asking questions, listening to understand, and then helping people by getting them or serving them in a way that helps them overcome those challenges that they're experiencing. So that was the posture that I always took to sales, just a heart for serving other people and helping them where they needed help most. And that did it. So I would love to eliminate BBVA from my work experience. I guess I wouldn't eliminate it altogether. So first, shout out to anybody that's like called to the banking industry that loves like the banker's hours, clocking in, the rigidity of it. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I need more flexibility in my schedule. It was a means to an end, that first job right out of college. 2008 is when 2014 is when I graduated from college, and job market was different at that time. Uh, I was just kind of taking what I could get. And so that first job was with BBVA as a sales associate. And it was a means to buy a ring so that I could propose to my wife, Erin.
Yeah.
If you look at my work history, it was like 7 months there. And I was like, that was the exact amount of time that I needed to earn enough to be able to purchase a ring so that I could propose to my now wife, Erin. So that was the big motivation for that first career. And I think, man, I would say a healthy marriage is a catalyst for the person that you want to become. There's scripture. I don't know exactly what verse it is. I think it's in Proverbs somewhere, but it's like, he who has found a wife has found a good thing. And that has 100% played out in my life. It's great for a couple of reasons. I think number one, you have unconditional love in a healthy marriage. So no matter what failure you experience at work or how many times you mess up, you get to come home and know that you're loved by this person unconditionally. Um, and then I think feedback. You just have like a built-in constant stream of feedback from somebody who's willing to be brutally honest with you, which anybody that's grown as a leader knows that feedback is required for growth. You don't grow unless you're getting some honest feedback. And then, I mean, marriage is just an ongoing lesson in selflessness. How do you approach life from a perspective that says this person is way more important than I am, and my goal in life is to serve them, um, and and help them succeed. And so that played out for me. Actually, I was working at the bank and miserable at the time. And my wife, Erin, was like, "Hey, I saw this job pop up for this company called Lifetime Fitness, which is a national fitness chain across the country. And she was like, you're an athlete. You're good at sales. You're good at listening to people. You're good at helping them overcome some challenges that they're experiencing. Why don't you go and interview there?" And so I did, and I joined the team at Lifetime Fitness. And so I worked there, stepped into a leadership role there at actually Lifetime Fitness for the first time. I was leading people as a sales manager. And then the transition from Lifetime Fitness to Greystone Country Club, which I'm still in sales now, I still sales specific roles, but the transition from Lifetime Fitness to Greystone Golf and Country Club was just a testament to faithfulness with what you've been given. I actually ended up doing a tour and selling a fitness club membership to the general manager for Greystone Golf and Country Club, which is one of the biggest country clubs in the city of Birmingham, where I'm located. They host like the SEC women's golf tournament and a big professional golf event there at Greystone Golf and Country Club. So it was leading membership for them, because the GM of the country club went through the process that I took him through to get him started with a fitness membership, and said, "You need to come do what you're doing right now for me at the country club." And so I said, "Okay, I'll come on board with the country club." Got to do the thing there. And the next transition, so from Greystone Golf and Country Club to where I am now with Wildsparq, is completely a spirit-led thing. That I would define that pivot, that transition, as a trusting God experience. I was doing financially very well at running memberships for Greystone Golf and Country Club, but was feeling a tug on my heart to look at what was next. And I had a conversation a couple months prior with somebody who was on the Wildsparq team at the time, a guy named Josh Etris. At the time, though, there was two Wildsparq employees outside of the two co-founders that started the company. So they were very small and trying to grow it. And at the time, Josh was like, "Hey, we don't have any openings available, but we'll let you know if we continue to grow this thing. Uh, if it doesn't go bankrupt and go under, we'll bring you on board with the team." And so, man, they did just that. They continued to grow it, and they opened up the next hiring position. So the third member of the Wildsparq team, and I jumped into the interview process for that. And uh, I am like a quick starter. I will take risks. My wife is like my level head. She is the reasonable one. She keeps me in touch with reality. And so she had some valid concerns about joining a startup that I think at the time was functioning out of our founder's basement. They had not moved into an official office yet. And so I was like, okay, let me reach out and see if this thing is the real deal. So at the time, one of the pitches to me bringing me on board with the team was, we work a lot with Chick-fil-A, which Chick-fil-A, world-renowned brand. Everybody respects Chick-fil-A and what they do from the leadership side of things. So I was like, oh, if they're doing leadership development for Chick-fil-A, then they must have their stuff together. They must know what they're doing. But I wanted to fact check it a level further. So a friend of mine, really my operator, I never worked at a Chick-fil-A, but if I had to designate like who is my operator, it would be somebody named Brent Fielder. He now works at the support center. But I called my friend Brent Fielder. He at the time was the owner operator of Chick-fil-A Greystone, in the community that I was working for the country club. And uh, I said, "Hey, this Wildsparq thing, they said that they serve Chick-fil-A's. You're a Chick-fil-A operator. Is this real? Like, is this worth jumping on board? Should I do this?" It's really seeking wisdom. And Brent was actually like, "Yes, we use them for leadership development with our team. You would be well suited to jump on board with the team there. The work that they're doing is meaningful and impactful." And so from there, I joined the Wildsparq team, and the rest is history. I've just kind of grown through Wildsparq. I've been here now for 7 years. So that was a long-winded way of walking you through my professional journey. But I think a couple of key principles in there: find a healthy marriage. I think that's the most important decision. One of the most second to choosing to follow Christ. The next most important decision you'll ever make is who to marry. So find a spouse that you can live life with. I think be faithful in everything. Be faithful with the little things, and then listen to the voice of our Father. I think listen to the Spirit that's moving inside of you. That's moving inside of each of us. Those would be the major themes that have caused each of those pivots, if you will, Alex, in my professional journey. How did I do? Did I cover all the bases?
No, you did incredibly well, and actually you stole a little bit of my thunder because I was going to unpack some of that that you did, because I think what and hopefully the people who are listening to this caught that you were focused on being, I'm just going to paraphrase it the way I heard it. You were focused on being the best you that you could be, no matter where you were planted. And then
Mhm.
those, and you doing so, and you committing to that, and you being faithful, other doors were open. So I think that was incredible. And to be honest with you, on a selfish, on a selfish note, when you say that, oh well, they use Chick-fil-A's, that adds credibility to what they do. I've been with Chick-fil-A for 20 years, and I think sometimes when I think about how people look at us outside looking in, I don't think they have a certain. I just, in my mind, it's like, okay, well, they respect you to a certain degree. You're still in this one genre of business, right? Or you're in this one category of business. But to hear you say that without any type of like previous conversation, no, that's confirmation for me that we're headed in the right direction as an organization. So no, so that you've always had the lens for leadership. It wasn't a transition of being an aggressive salesman. You've always kind of had this idea of doing people the right way, doing things the right way, and the doors will open for you thereafter. So that's pretty awesome.
Mm.
Now, I saw that you said that there's two questions that every leader should be able to answer for their team, right?
Mhm.
And I saw that, and I don't want to say I was challenged, but I was like, oh, that's a good way of putting it. So I want to know, what is your answer to these two questions? What are you
Yeah.
doing to equip your team for right now? And what are you
Mm.
doing to prepare them for the future? What are your answers to those questions?
Yeah. I would first insert a quick disclaimer up front. To be able to answer either of those two questions, Alex, I think we need to be having consistent conversations with those that we lead. So if you are responsible for somebody on the team, if you're stewarding somebody else by being their direct supervisor, there needs to be a cadence of conversations that's happening, some level of frequency to the opportunities you have to connect with that person. That's where it has to begin. Is just, I would first focus on the structure of how frequently are we having conversations, even if it's just showing up to say, hey, how are you doing professionally and personally? Tell me how your life's going outside of work. Tell me how your life's going inside of work. Start there. That would be the first step. But then to get into both of those questions, the first one is, how are you equipping them for where they're at right now? Their success is your responsibility with the role that they've been given. And I think a couple of ways that you help equip them in the role that they're in is you think for them to an extent. You've tried to shadow as much as possible. I know that that's difficult based on the scenario that you're working in, but proximity is really important. What the degree of which you can experience them in real time is the ceiling for the feedback that you're able to give them. So the more that you can experience them, the more surgical you can be with your feedback and pinpointing where they can grow most. So I think that would be it, feedback. But don't just jump in and give somebody feedback without first asking for feedback. You model it first as a leader before you start giving feedback to other people. It has to start there if it's going to come from a place of, if it's going to be accepted, if that feedback is going to be received well, it's got to be a two-way street. So you as the leader, I would encourage you first, hey, what feedback would you give me as your leader? How can I be a better leader for you? That's where you have to start with it. But then that opens the door because they're giving you feedback to be like, hey, I want to give you some feedback. And what will happen a lot of times is they'll ask for it. They experience you asking for feedback. And so they'll in turn say, hey, I would like some feedback too. Hey, could you give me feedback? And man, feedback can be a little, depending on your personality type. Some people who are very direct may not experience the fear of giving feedback to somebody else like I do. I'm a high S on the DISC assessment, which means I'm a peacekeeper. I'm a people pleaser, recovering people pleaser, I guess I would classify myself as. Uh, and so it can be
Yeah.
scary to step into feedback, but by somebody asking you for feedback, man, it completely changes that whole scenario in the environment of that conversation. So regular feedback, give them reps before they're ready. I heard a Chick-fil-A operator recently at a talent summit that I was at the support center. She said the key to the success of her team, and she said, I'm in small town Georgia. There's like a couple of stoplights in the entire town. And I regularly get local townspeople come up to me and say, hey, where are you finding these kids? And she's like, they're the same kids that are running around in the streets and in your schools. She said, I just believe that they're capable of more than they think that they are. And I was like, shoo, that's powerful. I believe that they're capable of more than they think that they are. You have to believe more than they do of the potential that they possess. And so that plays out by what do you give them ownership of? Where do you give them opportunities? Where do you give them chances to try new stuff, to maybe fail and learn from those mistakes, but to get better in the process? So those are a couple of things for the first question. Alex, any follow-up questions on any of those things before we move into question part 2B of this?
No, well, I just think you hit the nail on the head, and I think being able to, and I think that's the secret sauce, right? I think we're going to get to that, but I feel like it's a talent and a skill to be able to have the foresight in somebody else's life that they don't have for themselves. I think that's where the leaders really flourish. And our job, that's I think our primary job is to be able to select the talent. And I always equate it to clay. Like when you see the clay maker, they have that mound of clay, and after they get done working it, that clay turns from a pile of dirt to a beautiful vase or a beautiful whatever it is that person's doing. And I think to me that's exactly what you said. So no, I'm just soaking this all in because you're speaking to exactly how I feel about our role as leaders, not just as for ourselves organizationally. That's the same for our families, what we do in our communities. So no, you're tracking right on for me, man. Appreciate it.
That's awesome, man. The tyranny of the urgent and the pace at which we live makes it really difficult. That first piece though. So I won't discount that. I know it's hard. You have certain numbers that you're trying to hit in your business, I'm sure, and metrics that you're trying to achieve. And all those things could tell you, hey, you don't have time to slow down and engage with this person one-on-one. But I'm here to tell you, it is the single most important thing that you can do because it has a doubling effect, right? If you're able to pour into other people, man, that person can go pour into the next person, and you're it's a multiplication effect at that point. You're going to see such a higher return on that people investment that you make versus anything that you can personally just go and will your way towards inside of the business. The second thing that I'll talk about, preparation for the future. We got to dream. You got to dream with your people. They're dreaming regardless. They're thinking about where they're going in life, regardless of whether or not you're talking with them about it. And so that plays out in the questions that you ask them. And some of it is helping people get there. I know you mentioned, Alex, a podcast episode that I released a couple episodes ago on helping discover your secret sauce for leadership. That's the whole premise of my podcast that I run, is identifying people's secret sauce for leadership. And so I'll walk through a 5-step process to help people do that. So I think probably the first step is helping people realize the unique value that they add to the world that only they can because of the way that they've been uniquely designed. So I think that's first is being able to speak into their identity as a leader and knowing, wow, I'm really good at things. Like there's certain things that I can add a tremendous amount of value to others in, and then letting that fuel where they want to go in their life and in their career. And so, man, we do here at Wildsparq, we have two like reviews that we do, big reviews. So we do like an annual formal review, and then we have a midway point. So 6 months into the year, we do what we call a dream session review. And it's a little bit more laid back and casual, but it's simply to talk about your hopes and dreams for where you're going with your career. You're asking questions like, where do you hope to be 12 months from now? Or where do you hope to be 3 years from now? What are the things that you love most about your job right now that you want to continue pressing into and continue pursuing? What are the things that are really challenging for you in your job that you hope changes in the next 1 year to 3 years? What are the hard parts about your job that you hope never change because of what they're doing in you? There should be some type of embrace with doing the hard things. So it's beginning to ask questions like that sooner rather than later, and help guide them in that path. But then, invest in them if they want to do something, whether or not maybe it's not in your business. Maybe the future isn't inside of your business. How could you say, well, wait, man, because you want to go and be a doctor one day, we know that you can't do that in Chick-fil-A, at least yet. I don't think there's any doctor roles within the Chick-fil-A restaurants, but hey, we want to free up your schedules that would allow you to go start taking some classes towards pre-med, or, whatever that looks like. I think, um, but I mean, it's kind of all the same. Like the theme through it all is spend time with your people and ask intentional questions and listen to understand so that you can help get them there.
Well,
What
go ahead.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. What's your question?
No, man, I was just gonna say, anything that you would add to that is I mean, you're an expert in this too and helping people elevate and get to that next level. So I'd love to hear your take on it as well.
Well, I just have to echo the sentiment. I think a lot of times when we think about leadership, I think our mind more so defaults to a management mindset versus leading people. You know, we can get caught up into the systems and processes. This is the X's and O's, but the truly special things are in the relationships. You can look out at certain in sports. We talk about basketball, football, whatever. The coaches who make the connection. Even when you look at LeBron, for example, and let me say this: LeBron's not my GOAT per se, but I have to respect that he gets the best out of players who may not succeed as well as they do if they wasn't playing for him. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of that comes from, and you hear about it, the camaraderie that they have, the relationship that they have. He might have a handshake with each individual player on the team. Like there's a certain level of synergy when you peel back some of those layers and really get to know the person. Ray Dalio, he's the CEO, the founder of Bridgewater, a really big financial company. He has a book called
Mhm.
Principles, and he said the most important part of the job is the sabbatical. When you, and not the literal like we're going to go off for 3 months and not work, but anytime when we're at the water cooler, we're on break, we're on. I heard
Mhm.
you had an operator, and I don't remember what her name was. She was talking about she was learning Spanish, and she would say things wrong out of context, and how her team would have the opportunity to laugh. They have the permission to have fun and to grow with each other. I think when you create an environment, and the leaders are in charge of that, when you create an environment that's conducive to people feeling like this is not just work, this is something special. I have the luxury of working with some people who have been with started at the same Chick-fil-A at the same time. We've been there together 20 years now. Now we have the
Wow.
opportunity to do some business outside of the main thing is, and I think it's all because we've built a relationship, that they
Mm.
know that I've got their back, and then I know that they got mine. And so I think everything that you're saying, like, we make concerted efforts to make positive deposits in the lives of the people that we have a chance to impact. Even going, and this is not my this is not my sauce. This is Truist's sauce, to be honest with you. When you talk about
Yeah, yeah.
the corporate purpose, being a faithful steward to all that's entrusted to us, and without even going any further into the purpose statement. If we focus on being a great steward, if you work with us, I always say that I'll never have people work for me. I always will be working with people,
Mm.
versus them working for me. But it's like if we have that relationship, that professional relationship, it's my job to steward the relationship in a manner that you feel cared for, that you want to do your best work. You can't possibly expect anybody to want to do their best work or to make your dream a reality if you don't create an environment that cares about their dreams, that cares about the things that are important to them. So no, you're spot on when it comes
Mm.
down to, and it's almost like these two questions reciprocate. like if you work on those mechanisms to speak into their future, they're going to come back into their now. Like you're going to be able
Mm,
to be able to use that information and better equip them for to tackle the stuff that's going on now. So I see it all the time. Once I realize what a person's goals are, what their dreams are, what their aspirations are, I'm able to fine tune my conversation around like, hey, I know you wanted to be a teacher. We don't necessarily have formal teaching jobs, but being a trainer is similar to that. And let me show
mm,
you how we can draw those connections between what you want to do from a career standpoint, or and you said it earlier, how you got your job at Greystone. You was doing a great job at your job at the fitness center, and that
mhm,
opened up another door. There's so many people that come through our drive-throughs into our restaurants every single day, and if you're doing all the core things that we kind of coach you to do, that will
mm.
in turn I tell people all the time, you're trying to get into the radiology program, or you're trying to get into the nursing program. I'm sure the director comes through here and they know who you
Yeah,
are. Not to say that
yeah.
we're trying to massage any relationships, but it's just, if you're a good person, when they see your face come up, oh, I know you. You work at Chick-fil-A. You do this. You do that. Literally, the president of our local, we have a 2-year institute here. He comes to our drive-through every day, and I don't think people know
Mhm.
that's the president. And I know him, and I say, oh, hey, you guys know that's that individual there. And we got a little life happening right here because my little sweetheart has come up here, and we're gonna keep it
Oh, I
rolling.
love it.
We're gonna keep it
I
rolling.
love it.
Yeah, you can't see her in the
Hey!
frame. Say hello. Hey. All right. But yeah, I think your mom is coming to get you. Yeah, I think so. All right. I'm sorry about that, Josh. But anyway,
Oh,
no.
I love it. Dude,
That
yeah. If anybody understands, I do. For those of you listening, maybe not watching, Alex's daughter just made a guest appearance on the podcast, and it's gonna be the best thing that happens on the entire conversation today.
yeah, that's right. And so I'm going. All right. Thank
Oh, we got
y'all. Okay, baby, go ahead. All right.
you gotta love siblings too. We had a escorting out by older sister, I think is what just happened. That was awesome. But what you're saying, Alex, I think is 100% true. The diligence, the faithfulness in the little things is so incredibly important. You don't know what that can lead to. I think also being able to connect dots for people. It's the person that says, "Oh, I really want to be a teacher." Um, they're speaking role specific, like or like a title or an occupation, but being able to show them, "Hey, listen, the things that would give you fulfillment through teaching, you could actually do some of that here." Like whether that's the long term fit for you or it's going to be something that maybe prepares to launch you to a teacher one day, being able to connect the dots for people is, man, such like an expert level leadership skill. There's a story. Stephen Kinney is another operator there in the Houston market, and there's a leader named Amanda Finnegan who I'm friends with. I actually met her at the conference too, the same conference I met you at, and she was sitting, studying or something like that for a degree in social work is what she wanted to do. She wanted to be a social worker. And Stephen Kinney casually pops by and says, "Hey, as a Chick-fil-A owner operator, I do more work. I do more social work than social workers sometimes." And it was an aha moment for her to realize like, oh yeah, like what if I could do what I'm passionate about through this really awesome place in Chick-fil-A that I'm a part of. So, man, what you're saying is 100% true. I would double down on everything that you just shared, Alex.
I appreciate that. And again, for those of you out there listening, sorry about that life moment. And just to let you know that we're real people. We got real things, real families, real unexpected things going on there. But so you brought up the story about the operator, and this kind of transitions us into my next question. For those of you who do not haven't had the pleasure of listening to the Secret Sauce podcast, a lot of the conversation is with other operators. Sure,
Mm,
Josh does do standalone episodes where he is teaching on certain principles and topics, but where the sizzle is for a lot of the people who listen to it is when you get a chance to hear those stories from operators firsthand. And I just want to applaud you and give you your flowers
mm.
for doing such a great job with that, because I can't imagine sitting through some of those conversations. You never know what they're gonna say. You never know. You kind of going through it and stuff like that. So what are your top 3 operator conversations and why?
Man, this is a really difficult question, Alex.
And
I would
I did
say
it on
like,
purpose to kind of put you on the spot a little bit. Hopefully, no
oh
one
man,
gets offended out there. This is just Josh's opinion. This is subjective here.
I would say, I mean, I referenced a conversation I had with an operator already in the conversation day, Brent Fielder, pointing me in the career direction of Wildsparq. He's been such a helpful voice of wisdom through many different periods of my life. And so, I mean, he's one. I'm going to throw out a blanket statement here. This is kind of a cop out, but any operator that's been on the Secret Sauce podcast is an incredibly valuable conversation. So the audience knows, Alex, at Wildsparq, I've mentioned this. We do leadership development, and we've worked a lot inside of Chick-fil-A. So I've had the opportunity personally, probably to work with, I don't know the exact number, somewhere north of 200 different operators across the country, and just helping them set up and systematize their process for developing leadership skills inside of directors, shift leaders, team leaders, whoever they're focusing on. And so that I was very diligent in that work for probably about 5 years, and was heavily invested and poured into by operators in all those conversations. As you can imagine, if you're in Chick-fil-A, or if you've been in a Chick-fil-A before, you were probably invested in by an operator at some point in time. I just, because of my unique position, I got the opportunity to be invested and poured into from a ton of them. And so I learned an incredible amount, so much so that I was like, I need to be sharing all of this wisdom that I'm getting with the world. And so I launched the Secret Sauce podcast really because of that. I was getting poured into so much, and I thought, man, I've got to have some kind of outlet to share this. And podcast was just really the easiest method to do that. So shameless plug, go listen to the Secret Sauce podcast too. Please continue to listen to every single episode that Alex puts out, but also add Secret Sauce podcast secondarily to your list of
or
episodes that you're listening to.
primarily, if you like what you heard here. I look. Let me say this. I don't. I to For me, and not to interject too much. It doesn't matter where it comes from. I think everybody gravitates to who resonates with them, or who is speaking a language that is more palatable to them. And so even if introducing Josh's to our platform here cannibalizes some of our audience, that's okay if you're getting better. So I just want to make sure I say that. Go follow the Secret Sauce podcast. Listen to it because there's a lot of good information there.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that, Alex. So I'll rattle off a couple of people that, as your listeners are hearing this, I would encourage you to go connect with these people. You could go find their episode on the Secret Sauce podcast. A lot of them are on LinkedIn too. If you're not on LinkedIn, get on there. There's a lot of helpful connections that you can make through LinkedIn. I'll just go down a list and rattle off a couple that pop into mind. This is just like knee jerk reaction. So Kathy McCloy was the very first operator I ever interviewed on the podcast. She has such a heart level care for other people, maybe more than I've ever experienced. Just loves people with everything in her being. And so she talks a lot about building trust and authentic relationships with her team, and how, it's not business over here and personal life over here. Man, those things are wrapped together. They're fully integrated. So Kathy McCloy, Dave Kopsel, actually was at Chick-fil-A Next, which is the big annual conference that all the support center staff and operators go to. And I met Dave Kopsel actually for the first time. And people usually don't push you the first time that you meet them, like physically push you, but Dave Kopsel pushed me. He actually was doing like a real-time illustration to show me what leadership should look like. And he shared with me this concept of constant gentle pressure. And he was like, hey, turn around. I'm going to share with you what leadership should feel like. And he pushed me in the back just enough to where like I took a step forward. And he was like, leadership is all about pushing people. There may be an initial pushback that you get from them, but your job as a leader is to push them so that they take that next step forward, not so that they fall on their face and hate you forever, but just so that they take that next step forward and they can see what's in front of them, and they will love you for that. So that was Dave Kopsel. Nick Westbrook is another guy that, man, his shepherd leadership model is one that I have infused into my life in multiple different ways. One of the most simple yet profound principles that he gave to me is, he said, every time I step into my restaurant, I go and look every single team member in the eyes. I go around, I look every single team member in the eyes, and I give them a fist bump or a high five, but it's like a pulse check. You get your hands around how everybody is doing just by looking them in the eyes, and it communicates that you matter. The sequence of when you do things is so critically important, and it communicates to your team, you are the most important thing for me here. I am I am making a beeline to you. I'm making a direct line over to you to say hey to you as soon as I get in the store before I go check in on anything or look at numbers or check on the drive-through line or whatever. I'm going to make sure that my team's okay. And so I do that now. Every time I walk into the office or every time I get home from work, I am directly going to each member of my team or to my family, and I'm doing a soul check with them. That's another great podcast, the Shepherd Leadership Podcast that Nick runs is worth a listen. I'll just go one more here. Tim Sweetman is another guy that I would follow. He runs a podcast called the Tension Podcast. It has a newsletter that goes with it. And Tim's fantastic. He just talks about a lot. I mean, leadership is about the balancing. It's finding the tension and finding the middle tension and not venturing too far on the extreme on any direction. And so he's somebody else that I've learned a lot from. But the list goes on and on, dude. I could go for like 7 hours probably just talking about all the operators and all the life lessons that they've taught me and how they've helped me be a better version of myself.
Oh no, I know. I bet, man, because you've had a lot of exposure over the years, and you do a good job of connecting with them. That's why they keep coming to the platform. I only
Yeah.
aspire to get to that level. Maybe I should learn to lock my door a little bit. That might help some of the some of the flow. But
Nah, man.
but no, I mean, I want to say thank you for the conversation, man. And I've got one more question, if you would just indulge me here. What is
Yeah,
your secret sauce? What makes Josh Swing go?
dude. It's funny. I don't get asked that question a lot. I ask a lot of other people what their secret sauce is, and I don't I don't get asked what my secret sauce is a lot because of the position that I sit in. So so yeah, man, I'm happy to share. If I had to sum up my secret sauce, and I'll try to summarize this as best as I possibly can, I would say it is being a leader people choose to follow. Being a leader people choose to follow. Yeah, another way that I would frame this up is captain leadership, and I'll explain that more here in a second. But much of our lives is spent um, with leaders that we don't have a choice necessarily of if we want to follow them or not. You think about things like the family that you're born into. You are led by your parents. That it's uncontrollable. Like you don't get to control where you're born, and so you have to you follow the lead of your parents. Or at work, right? You sign up to work somebody and work somewhere, and you get a boss. You don't necessarily get to choose who that boss is. You get to choose where you work, but you don't necessarily get to choose who your boss is. You have to follow their leadership. Well, I have this conviction that I want to lead in such a way, whether somebody has to follow me, like if it's a part of their job or my son or my daughters, uh, I want them. Obviously, they have to follow me, but I would want them to choose to follow me if they could make a decision. If they could make a decision whether or not they wanted me to be their dad or whether or not they wanted me to be their leader. My conviction is that I would want them to say yes. I want Josh to be my leader. And the reason why I reference captain leadership, it's really interesting. This role of a team captain. Any listeners, Alex, who have played team sports in the past, they're probably familiar with the role of the team captain. Any of you who haven't played team sports before, maybe it's not as familiar, but the team captain is the voted upon leader of any given team. It's really one of the only leadership roles that exists that is crowdsourced, that it's like put to a vote. I mean, a president, I guess people vote for who they want the president to be, but it's one of the few leadership roles that is actually a voted upon role. And this started in my athletic career where I felt this calling to be the captain of the team. Like, I wanted to lead people in a way where they voted for me, that they wanted me to be the leader of the team. And so that started in high school. You mentioned earlier, I didn't make the middle school basketball team, so I couldn't be the captain of that team. The first opportunity I got to play basketball, which there's a whole nother leadership lesson wrapped up in there. But the first opportunity I got to play was in high school, and I got the chance to be the team captain for my high school basketball team. And and then I transitioned to college. I actually started not playing basketball. I went to the University of Alabama, which is in Tuscaloosa. I didn't go to play basketball, and I decided about halfway through my freshman year that God was calling me back to the game of basketball and wanted me to pursue basketball through college. So I transferred to a community college. It's in Tuscaloosa called Shelton State Community College. Shout out Buccaneers. And and this is something even my dad spoke this identity into me. Just like we're called as leaders to speak that identity of leadership into those that we lead. My dad did this for me. I went and tried out for the team. I said, "Hey," the coach at the junior college at the time, Coach Mohan, I said, "Hey, coach, give me a shot. Just let me come play some pickup with the team. And you tell me, if you tell me like there's no chance I have a spot on the team, then I'll never bother you again. But if there's a spot on the team and you think that I can compete, I'd love to play for your team." And I got the chance to play for the team. And he had a habit of talking to the parents. He wanted a relationship with the parents of the players, obviously of 18, 19-year-old kids. You want to know who their parents are. So he called my dad, and I think one of the questions he asked my dad was why should Josh be on our team here, or why should I let Josh be on our team? And my dad's response was, and he didn't tell me this until later. I didn't know this at the time, but my dad's response was, "I don't know that Josh is going to be the leading scorer on your team, or that he's going to be the most dominant player on the court. What I do know is before Josh leaves your team, he will be the captain of that team. He will be the leader of your team." And it's just the power that has when somebody, like we said earlier, can see the potential in you that you can't even maybe see in yourself at the time. They speak it into existence for you, and your ability to rise to that occasion is, oh my goodness, so powerful. I could go on a tangent about that. So it played out over the course of my college career, and then one more time when I finished up at my 4-year school called Bethel University in Tennessee. And man, the theme through it all and how that transitioned over into the professional world was, I wanted to lead in a way that people would vote for me. Like, if they could, that doesn't really happen in a professional scenario, but if they could vote for me to be their leader, that I would be the voted upon leader. And about 2 years ago, our VP of operations, a guy named Corey Tao, uh, said, "Hey, we want to create a title for you that has never existed before here at Wildsparq, and you're going to be the team captain here at Wildsparq." So a role that like doesn't really exist inside of professional scenarios. They're like, "We're going to create it." I have a captain armband that's sitting on my desk at work to let everybody know. But being a leader people choose to follow, I would say, is built up of three things. And I'll share these three things really briefly with the audience, Alex, in case you want to be a leader people choose to follow too. It starts with love. It starts with loving people well. People don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care about them. That requires you to slow your pace and spend time with people. You've got to prioritize spending time with people. That doesn't happen if you're moving at such a fast pace and you're focused on your own success so much that you don't recognize the opportunities around you there are to connect with people, to do life with them, to speak leadership into them, to speak identity into them. And so that's where it starts. Love is also having the tough conversations. So it's a double-edged sword. It's caring about people, slowing down, championing them, speaking identity into them. It's also challenging them. It's saying the hard things. I remember we were doing preseason conditioning when I was at Bethel University, and we were like number 6 in the nation. We had a solid team. But that wouldn't have happened if we didn't have some hard conversations before the season. One of the things that we did for conditioning was a timed 1-mile run around the neighborhood that our campus sat on. And we had a couple of players that cut through. They were very creative. They cut through 2 backyards to shave the distance off of their mile. They hopped a couple fences, but I didn't go to the coach about it. I had to go to the person. I think going to the coach could have created some toxicity and some divide amongst the team. I had to go to the person and say, hey, listen, you need to rerun it and you need to do it the right way, or we're not going to be the team that we want to be. That's love, though. That's if I didn't care about them, I would just let it slide. If I didn't care about them reaching the potential that they could get to, I would let them cut corners and not run the full mile and get a better time than they actually should have gotten. But that's not what we're called to do as leaders. So love is first, effort is second. You've just got to be willing to do what nobody else is willing to do. You have to show some unreasonable acts of passion and emotion if you want people to follow you. You have to earn their respect. There's certain things. There's a level of respect that actions will get you that words never will. Just because you're willing to show up and do the things, people will listen and follow you if they know, man. So I think what that looks like inside of a Chick-fil-A restaurant, Alex, it's like if I'm an executive director or I'm a director, I'm a high-level leader inside of the restaurant, I still need to go bread chicken with the team sometimes. And I still need to go pick up trash. I need to be able to go do all the things that I would expect my team to do. I think those random displays of an effort that comes from Colossians 3:23. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart. Put your whole entire heart into it as working for the Lord, not for man. The last thing is joy. You have to have fun or people just won't want to be around you. Nobody wants to be around a boring fun sucker who it's miserable to be around all the time. So that would be the last thing is make it fun. I'll go back to conditioning. Conditioning sucks. It's the worst. Running is just the worst thing in the world. It was a means to the end of getting to play a sport. The people who like run track and cross country, I don't know how you do it. I legitimately don't. Or like the marathon runners are out there. I have mad respect for you, but it would be miserable for me to go and do those kind of things. But it makes it a lot more fun if you can joke with your teammates while you're doing it. And even the really difficult things you can make fun. You can choose to have joy in any circumstance. So even though work is really hard and maybe you're working, in the ninth hour of a shift or something like that, you can still choose to have fun. It's all about the decisions that you make, the mentality that you have. So those are the three big things, man. Love, effort, and joy that leads to being a person that people will choose to follow for life. That's my secret sauce.
Man, yeah, that was incredible, and I love everything you said, particularly around the effort, the area of effort. Definitely, you have to those unreasonable acts, that display of doing the work. I'm a believer in that, man. I believe that
Mm.
for sure. So TPE family, I gotta say thank you so much to Josh first and foremost for coming on the platform. Gave us a solid. I mean, we're almost hitting. Yeah, we're reaching almost an hour here. And don't get me wrong. Like I told you at the top of this before we got started, I don't want to rob the audience of anything. And I think you gave us a full plate, a lot to chew on. If you don't, if this is your first time and last time listening to a podcast, I think you're going to be in good shape to be able to go at least start your journey of leadership. And if you choose to listen to a podcast a second time, I want to suggest to go listen to the Secret Sauce podcast hosted by Josh, because I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. If you enjoy this, think about a long-term relationship with him and in this podcast, how much more you can learn, not just from his perspective, but the perspective of the other operators and the other guests that he has on his show. And so, man, thank you so much for hanging out with us here at TPE. Guys, please like, share, and subscribe to this content. Definitely, we having value-rich conversations here, and we're going to continue to do that. And we're just going to close it up here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and until next time, TPE family, peace.
Tap into the Pivot Experience where we help young, hungry entrepreneurs move on to the next step.